Welcome to Rise Up in Business, the law podcast for small business owners. This podcast is designed to share important legal information without the stuffy legal jargon. I'm Tracy Milacrane. Let's get into today's episode. When I talk to a small business owner, most of the time, one of the things that they say to me is, I really want to grow my business, Tracy. One of my goals is growth. They start for all the right reasons. They have skill, they have passion, they have drive. They're doing the right things by reaching out to the right people to support them, to get themselves set up properly, and then they're away. Most of them say to me, I want growth. It's in their top 3 list of priorities. Since I started this business in 2019, I have seen all sorts of business growth stories, and some of them are fabulous, where businesses take off and they flourish and they're set up for long-term sustainability. Others, though, haven't ended so well. In fact, businesses have folded, businesses have suffered incredible losses, both on the financial front and the journey and infrastructure front. So why is that? The answer to what I've seen is unsustainable business growth. It happens too quickly. So what I want to share in today's podcast episode are my 5 tips for navigating fast business growth so that you're set up for long-term sustainable success and you don't end up folding or suffering significant loss as a result of fast business growth that a business can't handle. So like all things, there's no substitute for preparation, and prevention is better than cure. And if you're a long-time listener, I know you've heard me say that so many times, but there's a reason for that. If you have a roadmap, if you are set up properly for sustainable growth, then you've got a good chance of being around for a very long time. Let me start with point number 1, ensuring you have the right business infrastructure. Rapid growth really can strain a business's infrastructure if it's not set up properly. And by that, I mean the workings of your business. What makes your business work? Your people, your skills, your services, your digital marketing, your bookkeeping, your financial management, your team of advisors. It's what makes the cogs turn in your business. And when there's gaps and things missing, or when you don't have the right parts in there, if the business experiences rapid growth, things are going to become shaky fairly quickly. That's not rocket science, and I'm sure this is not the first time you've heard it. But having the infrastructure there, really taking the time to think about all the cogs in the machine, if you like, really can mean the difference between a smooth business journey full of growth and flourishing and sustainable success or not. And there's no shortcuts here when we're looking at the nuts and bolts and when we're looking at how things are actually working. So by taking a moment to step back and look at all the moving parts and assessing those moving parts to make sure that the right pieces are in the right place, it'll be really valuable. I talked about bookkeeping and I talked about having the right people around you, and that's going to dovetail into my second tip for navigating fast business growth, and that is financial management. Cash flow is the cornerstone of every small business. We all know this. With growth comes increased revenue. Great. Well, sometimes, but not always, because with growth comes increased expenses, increased liabilities to the tax office, pressure on the business owner, pressure on the operations. And if we're not managing the finances well, I think you know where this is going. Staying on top of all of this with the right bookkeeper to support you can be a game changer. I've seen it. The difference between the businesses that do have the right bookkeeper in place and those that don't, stark contrast. Similarly, an accountant in the mix who can work with the bookkeeper, again, massive game changer because you're asking the right people the right questions and you've got the right support when you need it. So a bookkeeper is going to manage your books and records. They're going to manage your cash flow. They're going to support you with your cash flow projections. They're going to make sure invoices are going out, invoices are getting paid. They're going to be talking to you about the expenses. They're going to be making sure you've got all the things in the right places. They're going to make sure you're aware of the sudden increase in spend in certain areas that perhaps you haven't kept your finger on the pulse with. All of those sorts of things are designed to support the business owner and support the business move forward in this period of growth, but to make sure it's done in a sustainable way. So the bookkeeper here is really vital when you're on this growth journey or this season of growth in your business, because what I say to my clients is just because you can do something doesn't mean you should. And what got you here won't get you there. So if you're a business owner who has been reconciling your accounts in Xero because you can, that doesn't mean you should. And what got you here won't get you there. So ask yourself the question, am I in my zone of genius when I'm playing in my Xero account reconciling? Or should I be outsourcing that to a really aligned, stellar bookkeeper to support me and spend my time in my zone of genius over here whilst I'm navigating this business growth period? You know the answer to that. In terms of an accountant is so vital as a part of your business, not only in the growth season, but in all the other seasons, because they need to be able to guide you and answer your questions so that you're making decisions consistent with your goals and objectives, and so that you're making smart decisions when it comes to tax planning and investing. I actually heard a quote a little while ago from an accountant that I work with, John Sade, at Latitude Accountants, and he'd said, if your accountant isn't on your speed dial, are they even your accountant? And gosh, I loved that. I have too many clients say to me, my accountant doesn't return my calls, or it's really difficult to get time to talk to my accountant. It's really hard to get to my accountant. I've got to go through other people. Query whether that's the right relationship for your business, because when you're in small business and you're about to make a decision and you really want to run it past somebody and you want to know that it's the right move for your business, being able to pick up the phone and talk to your accountant, leave a message, they get back to you, whatever it might be, can be critical, because sometimes it's too late by the time you've waited a week to book into their calendar or for them to get back to you. Sometimes it can be too late. So having somebody there that you can talk to when you're making these decisions can be really powerful, particularly when you really are on this growth journey, because it's nimble. You have to be nimble because it is ever-changing and constant, and you've got to act quickly. So managing your finances, staying on top of your cash flow, making the right decisions when it comes to the finances is really, really important when we are navigating fast business growth. The third tip is solid processes and systems in place are critical. I cannot stress it enough. Growth will put strain on your processes and systems in business. There's no two ways about it. If they're not solid, cracks will start to show and the whole thing can become compromised. Your whole workings of your business can become compromised. Processes and systems around things like your client engagement, your onboarding, your service delivery, your invoicing, your revenue tracking, your managing expenses, those are the processes and systems that are vital and that will really be tested in this period of fast business growth. I've seen businesses that don't have these types of processes and systems crumble under the pressure because they can't handle it. And the business owner thought, I need more clients, I need more work. That's the answer to the problems. We're going to grow. I'm going to take on team members. This is the recipe for success. When in fact, without solid processes and systems in place, that was the recipe for disaster. And the business wasn't able to keep up. The business owner wasn't able to handle the pressure, and the whole thing came crumbling down. That happens more often than we'd like to think, but it can be avoided. One of the key elements here, though, is processes and systems that work for the business, that everyone knows, and that can be executed consistently. That's where the magic happens, in the consistent execution. So if you don't know if your systems and processes are solid in your business, now might be the time to pause, take a step back and spend some time having a look and thinking about it and asking yourself the question, can we handle volume? You'd be surprised the amount of times the answer to that is no. And what that means is that there needs to be some adjusting of those processes and systems that are already there, or strengthening, or developing new ones? Whatever the answer is, it's important to identify it so you know, as a business owner, where you're sitting and how you're positioned in terms of your ability to navigate growth in the context of your processes and systems. If you're not sure what exactly it is that I'm talking about, then this is where the team of advisors you have around you will be really important. And the two key ones here are going to be your accountant and your business lawyer. Hands down, no question, your accountant and your business lawyer. You need a great accountant and business lawyer on your team as a small business owner to navigate this business journey, regardless of whether you're going through growth. But the value that they bring in times of uncertainty and in times where you are facing challenges that are new, both exciting and less exciting, your accountant and your business lawyer can be a game changer for you because they can help you know what to do, how to do it, and how to make the decisions that are best aligned for your business's objectives. So your solid processes and systems are key. Knowing what they are vital. Your accountant and your lawyer are the ones you can lean on for that. My fourth tip for navigating fast business growth is your team acquisition and retention. You need your people. So when you're going through this period of fast business growth, it'll become very clear very quickly whether you have the right people in your business. So you need to have the team that can do what the business needs to do and more of it. So attracting the right talent here is vital for your business for this long-term sustainability, because they're pressured when we're going through periods of rapid growth. And so it becomes very clear, again, very quickly, if we don't have the right people in there doing the things that need to be done. So taking time to think about the areas of genius that you need to fill in your business and the skill sets, the unique skill sets that you need to have is really important so that the cracks don't start to show and things don't start crumbling down when the pressure's on. This can be employees and it can also be contractors. So if you've got pivotal people in your team and they are your employees and they are part of your pillars for long-term growth, fantastic. Making sure you've got the right people in the right places, playing to their strengths, drawing on their skill sets, all really important. And of course, the value of outsourcing can't be underestimated either, because sometimes we need a particular niche skill set in our business, which is not necessarily fulfilled by an employee. There's horses for courses, and each business has different needs, and each of those individual roles can be filled in different ways. So having to think about who's on staff as employees and who are your contractors, do you have everything you need, is really valuable, because you're not waiting until you discover, oh my gosh, we're missing this, we need to fill this hole now. You're actually being proactive and you're thinking about what it is you need in place. So when you're navigating that fast business growth, having the right team with the right skill set, doing the things your business needs is really important. And I can imagine some of you are listening to this and thinking, gosh, Tracy, doesn't that go without saying? Well, to some people, great. I'm glad that you think that. But to others, it can be overlooked really easily, because as a business owner, what I see is when we're wearing all the hats or juggling all the balls, it's really easy to neglect one or more of those really important balls in the air or hats that you're wearing. So by bringing front and center to your mind in this podcast the value of the team and the skills and having the right people in the right place, hopefully that'll get you thinking now about anything that needs work here or anything that needs attention here in your business, so that you don't become susceptible later if you end up on the growth path. Because like I said at the beginning, prevention's better than cure. There's just no substitute for preparation. You just can't afford not to get this stuff right, which is why I'm sharing it with you. And my fifth tip for navigating fast business growth is keeping up with your contracts and agreements. No surprise coming from a business lawyer that this is something I'm sharing with you, but it really is tip number 5, because what tends to happen is things move quickly during periods of rapid growth. It can be really easy to forget things or to overlook things because you need to make decisions quickly. You need to move quickly. You need to make things happen. And there can be periods of reactivity where you're not having the headspace and the time to sit and think and be proactive, but rather you're in reactive mode and just doing what needs to be done. And what I've seen happen so often is business owners will then fill those gaps in relation to the team and bring people on really quickly because they have a need and it needs to be done now. And there's no time to negotiate terms and there's no time to sit down and prepare documents or to reach out to your business lawyer and say, hey, can you do me a contract for this person? There's no time. And because you are in a reactive mode, you're doing the things that need to be done now in the business. But what that can do is leave the business exposed later when you realise important contractor agreements have not been executed. They're not in place. They don't exist. Or employment agreements haven't been issued to team members. And so when there is time to breathe and there's a moment for some reflection, you realise there's misaligned expectations between you and some of these key players. Between you and your team, there's some misaligned expectations. There are some misunderstandings, genuine hand-on-heart misunderstandings, because things weren't set out properly in the first place in the documentation that you need. And this is not setting your business up for long-term sustainable success. This is now going to draw resources from the growth journey. It's going to draw resources from serving your clients because now you need to spend time managing these issues and sorting things out because documentation wasn't in place and things weren't set out clearly at the outset. You're now bootstrapping it, plugging holes, and you're on the back foot again. So making sure your documents are in place before you start this period of rapid growth is really, really important. And of course, your contracts and agreements extend well beyond your team. So it extends to suppliers. It extends to your clients. If you're in a period of rapid growth in your business and you are really quickly adapting and there's new offerings going out, and whether it's a new service offering or something new on your website, or you've decided to share something with the community and people want it, and so you sell it, but there's no terms and conditions in place via your website for you to send out, there's none. That's not setting you up for long-term success and positive relationships with new clients either. In fact, you run the risk of reputational risk and harm and brand damage. So again, making sure that you have your contracts and documents in place for all your service offerings, everything you're doing on the website, your team members, employees, contractors, your suppliers, all of them can be the difference between a smooth business journey or the opposite. So you can see where all this ends up. Setting yourself up for long-term sustainable success applies to smooth, quiet periods in business, and it supports you really well in business when you have got periods of rapid growth. So my 5 tips, based on what I've seen as a business lawyer for navigating fast business growth for business, are ensuring you have the right business infrastructure, making sure you're across your financial management, and that means with the right bookkeeper and the right accountant on your team, having solid processes and systems in place, make sure you're focused on team acquisition, having the right people with the right skills in the right places, and keep up with your contracts and agreements. And that's for your team, your clients, your offerings, all of it. By focusing on these things, you are setting yourself up for growth, for success, for long-term positive relationships with clients. You're protecting your reputation and your brand. And ultimately, you're setting your business up to achieve the goals and objectives that you have. If you do all of these things and you do find yourself in that position of rapid growth, you can ride that wave with sheer pleasure. It can be exhilarating if prepared for, and if set up right, it can be one of the most exciting parts of the business journey. But if your business isn't set up to handle it, it can be devastating, it can be soul-destroying, and it can end up in places that we don't even want to imagine. So, like I always say, there's no substitute for preparation. Please don't put these things off. Prevention is better than cure, and you can avoid the pitfalls. I hope you have found this episode helpful. If you're enjoying the episode, I would be ever so grateful if you would take a moment to leave a review. Leaving a review helps the podcast reach even more business owners that need the insight and guidance that I like to share here. As always, thank you so much for listening. I'll catch you next time.